So I would say that make a list of everybody that you know and start making those phone calls about sharing opportunity with them in the business, about what it is that you're doing or aspiring to do inside of your business, and see if they are interested in going along for the ride.
Welcome to the Boise REIN Show, your destination for creating wealth through connections in real estate and business. Are you looking to become a real estate professional? Do you want to start your own successful real estate business? Well, I'm your host, Matt Osanicki. Join us as we learn from the brightest minds, industry leaders, and experienced professionals, equipping you with the knowledge and confidence needed to make informed decisions and thrive in the ever-changing real estate landscape. Your journey starts now.
I know social media is important. I still don't do it, even though I know how important it is. Like, not just important, like for me, my business, but like other people want to hear that story too. They want to hear your story. I was personally motivated and excited to have you on just by scrolling your Facebook page and seeing what other people posted about you. Like, even though you haven't posted a lot, like I got a lot of information about who you were just from other people posting about you. So it is powerful.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah. So seeing people walking around with their cameras at the boardroom.
Well, and it's just anywhere, right? I don't necessarily think it's just like, it's like going to a concert, right? It's like going to a live show, and you look around and you see half the audience just sitting there holding up their phones, trying to capture the moment, but they're watching the moment through their phone. They're not actually watching the moment.
Yes.
And it's just getting lost in that. And so that's a part of, I don't know if you want to kind of dive into this, but that's kind of been my resistance to that, is because it feels like I'm taking away from being present. And for as much as I want to be authentic, I don't really feel called or drawn to that, although it is necessary. So that's part of what in this kind of restructuring and this rebuilding, I'm looking at this other area where I'm going to. Do I need to do this in this space?
You may not need to do it, and it may not be something that you want to put yourself out there for if you're successful at what you're doing. Right. I totally get it. But marketing and social media has changed the game with which businesses grow. Like
100%.
It's required.
Yep.
It is the evolution.
Yeah.
And you have to adapt and grow with it and come up with your own uniqueness, or, choose to just do business how you've been doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Marketing. I 100% agree with the marketing component, because if you're not marketing yourself, then you're not going to be in business.
Yeah.
That's just flat simple. Now, beauty of it is, and the way that I look at it, is that there's a million ways to market yourself. There's certain strategies inside of our business that, techniques that work really well for a lot of people. And we don't use those because I'm either not in alignment with it, or we're just not very good at it.
Mm-hmm.
And we've hired services, we've brought it in-house, we've hired contractors to do it, and just had very mixed results. And we stuck with it, and we just didn't get the results that we thought we would. And part of it, kind of coming back to being in alignment with things, is whether you call it woo-woo kind of thought, but for me, I just felt like it wasn't in alignment with who I am, which and down to the core of our business. And so I think it was reflected. That energy kind of gets thrown out, and that reflects down the line. The results just weren't there.
Yeah.
So.
And like you said earlier, you have systems that are proven to work and work really well without social media,
right,
or any kind of marketing like that.
Right.
And I feel like if you're trying to build a funnel that requires you to be on social media to bring in, let's say, a lot of capital or a lot of eyes, then yes, it is 100% like you need to be doing that.
Yeah.
But if you don't have a funnel built, to bring in, these eyeballs, like there's really no need.
Yeah.
Another thing that tears me apart, like, because I know it's important.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And the hard thing is just like this industry, man, there's a million ways to make money in this business. And if you don't know which lane that you're in,
yes,
then you're going to go crazy, because you're just going to be spinning your wheels and going here, chasing this shiny object. And it's the same thing with marketing. Marketing is the same is the same place, because you can get stuck down the rabbit hole on the shiny objects of what marketing should I use, and then people get caught in this trap of like, well, I have to do it all. And the reality is, you probably just need 1 or 2 channels, and just go.
Yeah.
And then, but to the point, it can be overwhelming. But knowing what your lane is, knowing who you are, knowing what your business is, and where you're focused and you're driving, what your niche, can really clarify a lot of things. And I think that's the struggle in getting started. It's because there's so many opportunities and people aren't really aware of all the ways that you can make money.
Yeah, 100% agree. And you have to stick to it, to the one thing that you're doing, and give it time.
Yeah.
Because the shiny object syndrome, everybody sees everybody doing so well. Like, oh my gosh, the graph goes up. Like, I can do all this stuff. And then they do it all and they're like, I really suck at it. Okay, well, let me go to the next shiny object so I could be awesome again. But even though, I didn't get enough time, I suck. They don't give it enough time to see that long-term growth, after they've failed, made mistakes, learn how to do it. Okay, I shouldn't do it this way. This is how I need to be doing it. I thought that this was the right way to do it. It's not. And, oh, by the way, my goals changed.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the one thing is like, oh wait, I really don't like this, and I really don't fit in this niche, or I really don't fit in this strategy. It's not really what I want. I thought it's what I wanted because that's what the marketing piece that I received when I signed up for this thing told me I wanted.
Right.
It sounded cool and sexy, but it's really not as sexy as I thought it would be. But I think I'm really more in line over here, and that's kind of how we got started. When I very first got started, it was the same thing. Which I don't know, are we kind of going, or what do you want to do?
I was going to make the intro when it felt right. This will be a little off the cuff, but I think it's perfect.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, we went from flipping houses when I teamed with my partner at the time, and we started flipping houses in like 2009 when the market was just absolutely sliding. And so we were going against the grain on this thing. And, we'd buy a house, and then 90 days later, it was worth almost about as much or less than what we paid for it. And we're sitting there trying to flip the thing, right? Going through doing renovations. And then after about 12 to 16 months, we looked backwards and we did like 35 houses, and we realized, oh, we made about a net zero, and we don't want to flip houses. I mean, that's not our business. So that's when we was going through that we realized, oh, actually we just want cash flow. We want to kind of build. So we were in a flipping business, but we really in our core wanted cash flow, but we had to go through that experience. And then that's when we went, oh, well, we don't want to do that. So then that's when we went out and kind of got some real education. It was kind of like one of the first investments in some of the education. And then we kind of built some and realized, oh, we need to focus on this. It taught us about systems, taught us about focusing in, getting honed in. And then from there, we just scaled and went.
Yeah. It's incredible how you can listen to all the YouTube University, go and seek all the mentorship, have people tell you what they've done and try to formulate it to you, and think in your mind, oh my gosh, this is just such a big animal that I'm just going to have analysis paralysis and just not do anything. Whereas if you just pick something and do it, you learn more than anybody could have ever taught you.
Yeah. YouTube University is great because it's free, and like there's more information out there, that's free for somebody to get started in doing anything. But the analysis, but the problem with that, and this is where I anchor to the investment in educating in yourself, is that you now have skin in the game, right? When you actually invest, whatever it is, $5, $10, $15, $20, $30,000 into a mentor and a mastermind, now you're invested. Like, okay, I at least have to go get my return on my investment here. Because if I don't, then I'm just wasting my time. I'm wasting everybody else's time. I'm wasting my family's time. I'm wasting all of that. Whereas if I can just look it up on YouTube, that's great. But I think that information that's sitting there on YouTube is for like real action takers, alphas, people that just don't even question and go. I think for the people that are coming out of a W-2, that are used to that security, are gonna maybe waffle a little bit.
Yeah, because they don't know what they're looking at. What I love also about having the mentors and being in person and going to some of these events and having the mentorship is you're being held accountable. You are face to face with the person that you're discussing this strategy or business with, versus like YouTube University or Instagram or Shorts. Like, you could just get caught in an endless cycle of scrolling of people who are going to just be talking about, oh, creative financing is awesome, and all you have to do is this, this, and this. And it's going to sound like, they're the best. They know what they're talking about, even though in real life, they may not necessarily know it because they've not had that front to front facial confrontation. They're just putting whatever on social media just to like grow an influence.
Right.
And it gets lost in translation for the person actually trying to grow.
Yeah. There is that accountability. That is one component to those networks and to that mentorship. The other side of that though is if you're not doing anything and you're in a group that you're paying to be in and you're watching everybody else around you implementing, having success, scaling, and like rising and continuing to do, and then if you're still doing nothing and you're still not getting the results, you're gonna weed yourself out real quick because you're just gonna be like, well, you'll automatically push yourself out. And in those groups, they'll be there to support you, but if you don't do anything, you'll instantly just find your own way out. Because I mean, they'll hold you accountable to an extent, but at the end of the day, I mean, you have to be accountable to yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And you'll make the decision. And I've seen it in groups I've been in, and I've watched them just kind of pull back into the shadows. And then eventually when it came time for renewal or the next quarter or next meeting, they didn't show up because.
I wonder why that is, because it's a proven system. You have the proof of everybody around you who have been successful because of it. So you have the groundwork, you have the proof, the system works. Why doesn't it work for the person?
I think that's the $1 million question, right?
I think it comes down to that person not wanting to take action or something that they're not willing to do. Maybe they're trying to prove to themselves that the system doesn't work for them.
There's a lot of psychology behind it. And I think 98% of this business is all right here.
Yes.
It's all right there. It's not the how. It's just a matter of, because we all know how. If I just do this, if I just do this, if I just do this, if I just take these action steps, it's easy. But there's the psychology behind it, and deal with that a lot. I mean, I dealt with it a lot in the groups I'm out with. That most of these groups and most of these mentors, they spend their time. They don't spend the time talking about how to structure a deal. The earliest mentors that I remember, one of the what actually was one of the very first ones that we invested in. They talked about the systems, they talked about implementation, they talked about all the how-tos, but then he spent probably the rest of the time talking about psychology, breaking down the patterns that we've developed since we were 3 to 4 to 5 years old.
Yeah, and habits.
Yeah, the habits and all the negative reinforcement that we had in our lives, and just unwinding that, because a lot of it, it's tailed. I mean, you can anchor it to people being afraid of success. It's not fear of failure. It's fear of success. Like, okay, what if I actually make this happen and I actually am successful? Then what? I mean, that's a legit thing. People are fear of they're more afraid of success, I think, than they are of failure. Because.
All right, I have to be a little personal with you on this one because I feel like I have this right now. I am personally afraid of success. I feel like I've got a really good product. I'm sure a lot of people out there listening work hard at what they do too, and they're just afraid to grow. How do you break that fear of success when you know you're doing the right thing, know you're around the right people, but you're too afraid to let everybody know?
Well, I mean, what I would do in my response to that is probably 5 layers of why, right? Asking yourself why, get your answer, why, get your answer, why, get your answer. Go deep with that, because I mean that could be, I think that's a huge rubber band ball of questions that we can just unravel, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we could probably spend hours and time doing that, but I think at the end of the day, what it really comes down to is, addressing. Figure out a way to put this. Kind of lost my train of thought on it, but I think the fear of success is when we're going through that at this point, at least for me, there wasn't enough pain in my life pushing me one way or the other. It's pretty comfortable.
Yep.
And I think that's where a lot of people find themselves in making that move, because their life isn't painful enough to really push them to that next phase, to that next step, everything is just, it's just okay. It's like that W-2 job people are in. It's like, man, they pay me enough to not want to leave, but they don't pay me enough where I feel like, or they pay me enough where I don't want to leave, but they're not paying me enough where I feel like I'm appreciated, where, you know, they're leaving me a little bit disgruntled, right? And so there's not enough pain in life. And where one of my mentors told me too, one of them, he said, people will run faster from pain than they will to pleasure. So on the scale, if you look at it from, you have pain and fear over here, and you have success and luxury over here. People dream of this, but they run from this. Like they'll scan. I mean, they will bolt from this. But for them to go here, they'll dream of it, but they'll just dream and they'll just kind of hover here. But if they get more towards the scale of pain, like they'll find a way to get out of it, right? It's desperation. So long answer to the question is, I just don't feel like there's probably enough pain in most people's lives that they realize of where the success is and what it can provide them.
Elegantly put. You nailed it. And that's exactly how I feel too. 100%, you build something. It was a lot. Okay. For example, it was a lot for me to get out of my W-2 job.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of pain there. Okay. Got out, went through it. And the change that happened because of it was amazing. So running from what I was scared of was the best decision like I could ever make. And there are a lot of things that happened in my life that have resulted in that, just like everybody else. You realize those pivotal or forks in the road moments where it's like, wow, that changed me for the better. I learned from running from that pain.
But you didn't know it then.
You didn't know it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Dan, welcome to the show. This is very unorthodox. Boise REIN listeners, this is the Boise REIN podcast. I'm your host, Matt Osanicki. And man, Dan and I have been talking a lot before we started this episode today, and it's just been really great conversation that we just rolled into it. For those of you that don't know Dan Walters, he's been in this industry for years. I'm going to say 20 plus years, but
not quite. Let's say about 15.
15 years. Have you ever had a W-2 job?
Yes, for about 8 months.
For 8 months?
Maybe.
Okay.
Ish.
So basically most of your adult life, you've been an entrepreneur in one way or another, one fashion or another.
Correct.
And the first time I met you was at the Boise REIN conference, the big conference that they put on last year.
Mm-hmm.
And you were the keynote speaker, you and Shannon. And I was blown away by what you provided the whole group that we were there and learned so much from it. Just another reason to just be in person and go to some of these events and hear these people firsthand and shake hands and just talk to people, because you talked about your experience. It was the 4 conversations for success that you have experienced in your life. And what I loved most about it was, even though it was what you experienced, you told it in story format and gave examples to the audience that they can relate to. And it blew me away. And I gravitated towards that, as I'm sure a lot of people have. So much so that you even brought your daughter up to speak, which I have to bring that up because she crushed it. I think she got more of a standing ovation than you did.
She did. Yeah. No, there was it wasn't any standing ovation for me. There's no need to, but yeah, when you got she was impressive. I was really blown away by her. She's an amazing talent.
I was too. I couldn't picture myself being her age and doing that.
Yeah. Me either.
Yeah. I don't know. Strong father figure, good family values. No idea. She's amazing.
Yeah. It's probably all from her mother, I'm sure.
Probably.
The other side.
But what that got me thinking was like, not every person is like you. And not every person is like anybody here. Like I get that, but like you have spent a lot of time in yourself. You spent a lot of money, a lot of education, a lot of time away from family, to grow your personal development side. And I want to touch on that a little bit and like just go over the audience, some of your lessons learned or what you have taken away from it, because I'm sure you, as your younger self going through these, were like, what am I doing here? How do I fit in? How do I give value back to the community? And just take a moment to look back on that prior you. And
yeah, no, I appreciate you saying all that. I mean, I think, looking back to when I first got started, which, I really went full time into this thing in about 2008, 2009. So right as the market had just taken, a dramatic turn and, ended up at the point in time was really one of the most significant real estate or market crashes in the history of, in the United States, outside of, like the Great Depression was what we saw. So, as we were talking about before, what I had realized when I had started that, going it alone or going it kind of just using, I guess I'll use the term ego, right? I've got enough life experience because I anchored to, well, my mom was in real estate. My mom was a real estate broker. So I've known a lot watching her, although I never really spent time in the office with her. But so it took learning some hard lessons, going through those first probably 12 to 16 months when I decided to go all in and went full time on the real estate investing side, where I realized that, oh yeah, like just because I hung around some people or hung around somebody that was in it and I didn't really pick anything, I just thought just being in the vicinity could help me. I realized that that's, success doesn't necessarily just happen because you're just hanging around people. You actually have to implement systems. You actually have to implement like good investing decisions. You have to actually good evaluation processes. So yeah, we went through the very first probably 12 year or so inside of the business and just kind of had a net zero after the volume that we did. We did like 35 plus houses, and we realized at the end of doing that, like we need somebody that knows this business intimately, that's been in it for a while, to really kind of help and guide us.
Yeah. I want to stop just for a second. So for the audience, you were flipping houses for a year or more.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. So that was just basically like kind of the natural process, which I think most people, when they step in, I think let's
how can I make money in real estate? I'm going to flip houses.
Yeah. Hey,
that's what you chose.
Yeah. That's what we chose. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. But yeah, that's what we did. That was kind of the natural gravitation. The partner I was working with, who's still partners with today, he had a background in construction. I had a background in having a mom in real estate.
Okay. You work with what you got. That's why it's so important to be around people.
Right. 100%. So anyway, but what we had realized is that, oh, you know what, like actually hiring somebody that knows what they're doing, that's been in the game, that has an actual process and a system to kind of scale a business and to actually make wise decisions and, and to how to really evaluate things. That's probably worth spending this much money based off of how much money we lost or didn't lose, or net zeroed over the last, 12 to 18 months of our time. Let's see if we can go find somebody that can maybe compress that time for us and help us scale. So that was really, my first step into that. And then once, just the power of, it was scary right in that first check, to invest, because you're kind of putting your hard-earned dollars into the faith of somebody that you believe is going to give you what you want.
Yeah.
And so we went in with just the trust and the faith and a little bit of vetting, obviously. But once we got inside of that room, once we got inside of that network, and once we started interacting with people around the country that were of the same mind, you just realize the power and the energy that was in there. Where we would go there every 90 days. We go spend 4 or 5 days, spend a week down in Phoenix is where he was based. But every 90 days we were looking forward to that trip because we knew it was a place we could go and we could really connect with like-minded people that were on the same path, had the same vision. And we were building something that was in alignment with where we were at that time in our business.
Yeah. I like that, because if your employees that are working for you have questions or they need to consult you and they don't know how to figure something out, they come to you, the business owner. So where does the business owner go to consult when they have questions and they run into a roadblock?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because at any point, right, there's always new levels, right? We say new levels, new devils is kind of the saying that we've, just because we get to a place that we've never been. Mm-hmm. And so now we're at the floor again. And so we're trying to get to the ceiling, but inside of that, like there becomes new problems. Like one of the very first things that we learned was you don't know anything in real estate until you've bought and sold 100 houses. Right. And most people, heck, if they've done 10 or 15, it's like, wow, like you got this thing nailed. And he was like, this guy had been in the business for 20 plus years. And he said, until you've done 100 houses, like you really don't know anything. And I've kind of found that to be true.
Yeah. What I'm reminded of is like, it's awesome to think that you could buy 15 houses or flip 15 houses. Like you must be making so much money.
Right.
But just because someone is perceived to have done the 15, you really have no idea on what systems you did to do it. You kind of just hustled your way through it.
Yep.
It's not until like the 100 houses that you're like, I've learned from my mistakes. I've built what works. I've systematized this out. I've got a process. Is that something that kind of, would you say happens when you start going through those repetitions?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if we're just talking, let's just use that number, right? Just from a transactional standpoint.
Sure.
I mean, if you're able to get to a point of actually doing 10 to 15 transactions, and let's just say it's flipping houses, I mean, you are hustling. You are hustling and trying to put that stuff. Just making those deals work, putting together, and you're probably wearing all hats from the marketer to answering the phones to sending out the mail campaigns, maybe even handwriting these letters and putting them out, or you're running your ad campaigns and you're doing the lead management where you're qualifying, and then you're actually setting the appointments and you're going out to the appointments, and then you're the transaction coordinator and then you're the project manager and you're all those things, right? But then
you're very passionate about that.
Well, it's like
I love it.
But yeah, so you've got this. But at 15, and I think at that point, what you don't realize is because you're looking at other people like, man, I just want to get to that point. And then you realize, well, I've done like 10 or 15. Man, if you've done 10 or 15 properties, you're like in the top 2% of real estate investors in the industry as far as success. I mean, that's just the facts. Like you're literally like in the top 2 to 5% of successful real estate investors in the nation.
Before I got into real estate and I was just a W-2 guy, I didn't know that you could buy more than one house.
Right.
So that's like just an average American who was in the military. I didn't even know you could do that.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, there's just that, it's just that the idea of that mindset of understanding, like you're at that point, I mean, you're still just hustling and just trying to figure it out. And I think at that, if you've done 10 to 15 houses, I think you realize that, hey, this is something that that I enjoy doing, or there's something there where I'm finding that the money that I'm making from these, I can stow those away. I can stow that away in some sort of retirement, or it can be additional income to what I'm already making in my W-2 if I'm doing that. But I think if you've done that many, I would even say probably less than that. I'd say 5 to 7. If you've done 5 to 7 deals, you've probably found something that you can do for the rest of your life if you want to, or make it a full-time job if you want to, right? And it's kind of the beauty about this whole thing. It's your business, it's your chalkboard. You can make it the way that you want.
Yeah. We all come from a hustle background. As entrepreneurs, you just got to figure stuff out and just build from there. I feel like that's why being consistent at something for a long period of time is where true growth and like a hockey stick comes from. Mm-hmm. So I want to talk about that a little bit. And I know we've been talking about all the masterminds and mentors, coaches that you've spent time and energy on. Going to one of them, particularly the Boardroom Mastermind. You've been a member there for some time. What the question I want to ask is something that the founder Keith has said, and I know you've worked with him Kent.
Yeah.
Kent Clothier. You've been working for a long time. One of the things he said that I really liked was that it focuses on individuals that are building disruptive systems that push entrepreneur dream and the real estate industry forward. So it's the systems that you guys are building there in the boardroom that are pushing the industry forward because you've come from the hustle background. In my years of study, I found that building systems or businesses around real estate investing has been more impactful than just real estate investing, but building systems around it. What has been your takeaway in many of the systems that you've built? How have you seen the growth from building systems around real estate?
Yeah. So, in that statement that you just read from Kent, I mean, his whole goal in what he's creating there and what he tries to, emulate and push out into that industry, into that group, into the entire industry. I think it just serves for business in general.
Yeah.
It's get out of being a hustler and start acting like a CEO. go from hustler to CEO. And you can't be a CEO without systems and processes, right? So, and that process and system starts from the top. It's a trickle down effect, right? Whether it's implementing EOS or whatever it may be. I mean, if you have employees, but for us, like the most powerful component that we had in structuring and scaling was that in that first mentor that we did hire, because it got us in alignment to exactly what it is that we do, right? Like, what's the core of our business? Like, what is it? Because if you go out and talk to a handful, I bet if you went out and talked to 100 real estate investors and you asked them what their core business is, I'd be really surprised to see how many of them could actually tell you what their core business is.
I agree.
Right. So it was really identifying what our core business is, and we wanted to be a cash flow business, right? So we wanted to build sustainable cash flow. So that meant we had to go and buy rental properties, right? I mean, that was essentially what we were, the strategy that we were going for. So once we got clear on that, it was like, oh, we want cash flow, and we just spent 18 months doing flip houses. I mean, how are we going to build? And we were completely out of alignment, right? Mm-hmm. So just getting clear on exactly what our model is, what our core business is, and then exactly what's that inventory that we're going after? What does it look like? What's the buy box, so to speak, right? What's our profit that we're looking for? Once we just taking that system in and of itself, just for my own clarity, and then from there, creating the systems and processes below that is simple, because now you're just communicating to your team or whoever's going to work with you. Here's what we're looking for, right? This is what we're going after right now. And again, now as markets change, that evolves a little bit, obviously, but in the scope of where we were inside of the market at that time in the late 2010s, the early 2010s, 9, 10, and 11, when we had heavily buying, it was like, this is what we buy. But we had the inventory to go out and with all the low hanging fruit. But what it did is it creates clarity, right? So there's clarity inside of the team. There's clarity inside of the partnership. Like, there's no silver objects. There's no shiny objects that are just flying all over the place. It's like there's stuff flying all over the place. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities that we passed on that we regret now, but at the time it was what we needed. So anyway, that statement took us from a very simplistic form. It just took us into a mode that allowed us to scale really quickly.
Yeah. If you're just being a hustler, like, you're going to hit a ceiling. Like you said, if you're wearing all the hats, you only have so much time in the day to do things.
Yeah.
And you don't know where you're going. You can't steer your ship.
Yep.
You're just spending all your time rowing.
Yeah. And that can be whether it's somebody that has 5, 10, 15, 20 employees, or it could just be a solopreneur operator, right? Because you only have, everybody has the same amount of time in the day. And it's just a matter of how you utilize that time, right? I mean, it's all pretty simple. But so if you understand exactly what it is that you're going after, then your marketing can be very detailed. It can be very narrowed down. I mean, and the time that you spend in talking to people, and what you're, in evaluating a deal, it can be a lot quicker, because you know what your profit margins and you know what your acquisition costs need to be. You know what your construction costs are. So if you can get all those things dialed in, the evaluation process becomes much quicker, simpler, faster, more efficient. Again, whether that's somebody running a team of 20, 30, or 40, or 50, or it's just somebody in their house working with a laptop and a phone.
Yeah, you start to move from hustler to CEO by having that clear vision.
Yeah.
Line up the systems and processes. Another thing I want to talk about is taking action. A lot of the advice we get on this show is if there's any advice I could give, it's to take action. Well, one of the requirements to get in the boardroom is somebody who is willing to take massive action. What does that person look like to you? Because it's one thing to just say, I'm going to do all these things. It's another to do them. What does massive action look like to you?
It's somebody that's not going to talk about it so much. I mean, I think that's just it. I do a lot of consulting with people inside of that group, and then we do some coaching and things like that. But it's we'll do weekly calls, and we'll have somebody tell me what it is that you're going to do. And then they tell me, okay, cool. And then a week later, layers of excuses. So that's the thing, right? So somebody that doesn't make excuses, right? Because I mean, it's your results that matter at the end of the day. So as long as because this game, it's all about volume. It's a volume game. Like, right, especially right now in the market that we're in here locally, like you got to have volume, because if you don't, like you're just your law of averages are not going to be in your favor, right? So I think that's the biggest thing, is just, the massive action is just going out and just do what you say you're going to do. Just give yourself that chance. Because if you're not, then go spend your time doing something else. Like that's the biggest thing that I see, is that, we were talking about earlier about the fear and the, running from pain and pleasure, or, running from pain faster than you run to pleasure. And there's a lot of these, a lot of people that have these dreams of having this grandiose life, or having these grandiose thoughts about what they can create with real estate, whether it's wealth or riches, all those things. But it's just, if they're not going to take the action to actually do it, which it's really simple, right? I mean, there's 3 things that make you money in this business. There's 3 things, and that's it. It's talking to sellers, talking to buyers, and writing offers. That's the only 3 ways you can make money. And so if you're not doing any of those, if you're not willing to do any of those 3 things, then that's fine. Then just go spend time with your family. Go, maybe go look for another W-2 job or whatever it is. But just go do one of those 3 things on a daily or weekly basis, and everything else will take care of itself. Just be consistent with it. So I don't know if that really answers your question. As far as massive action, I mean, it's just do. Just do. Just do.
Yeah, because you're also building trust. Like, you work in a community, whether it's here in the Valley or somewhere else in the United States, like your reputation will precede you.
Yeah.
The word gets around. And if you're doing volume and you're communicating well, like, you don't need to tell people you're doing well, because you're taking the action.
Well, yeah. And I think, the biggest trap that we all fall into, especially getting started, is, and I think this is where social media does a lot of detriment than it does a service, is we instantly go to a comparison mode. So somebody that's just getting started is following somebody in the industry that is, that is influential, right? And is promoting a program, they're promoting a strategy, a technique, whatever it may be, but they're looking and they're following them. And what ends up happening is, well, I made 5 phone calls, I talked to 5 sellers, and none of them want to sell. Well, I suck, right? I just can't do this, because this guy over here, he's doing all these, and he's a huge success. So there's this instant comparison of somebody just getting started to somebody that has 5 or 10 or 15 years of experience. Like, that person started exactly where that started at the very, very beginning, right? And they had those doubts, they had all that stuff, and it was just a matter of making one more call, talking to one more seller, writing one more offer, having one more conversation to somebody to help, maybe help them fund a deal, right? Or talking to one more realtor about, hey, here's what I'm looking for, here's what I need. Will you write something? It's just one more conversation, and the willingness to do that one more thing is what gave them the motivation to do it again the next day.
Yeah, I like what Ryan Weimer said. He wasn't trying to make a goal of closing deals or writing offers. He was just, when he first started off, my goal is to get 400 no's today.
Yeah.
And if I can get 400 no's, I know that the law of averages will say that the outcome or the side effect of me making 400 phone calls will close a deal eventually.
Yeah. You're one step closer to a yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And so that's the misconception. Like, and so that's the other thing I tell people too, is like, look, if you're following somebody and using them as, don't compare yourself to them, right? Like, for me, when I started working with Kent, like I really admired Kent, and there was a lot of things that I had to overcome myself. Like, I had to realize, I can't compare myself to him, because he has way more time under tension, way more time under tension than I do. But I used him as inspiration. So it's not comparison. Use it as inspiration to keep going, because if you keep working, if you keep doing consistently, you will end up there. That's the thing. Like, for me, like, it's crazy that you talk about that that REIN event that I spoke at, it was weird to kind of like be, I'm kind of like the older guy in the room as far as like, you know, I've been in it for like 15 years. Like you look back and kind of go, wow, like I still, like, I don't really know a whole lot. I've just kind of just done and just kind of went, you know? And I think that's the biggest thing as far as from a massive action standpoint. Massive doesn't have to be like you have to write 1,000 offers in a couple days, or you don't have to have done like, you know, $500,000 in transactions, or have $500,000, you know, in 3 to 4 months. And if you don't do that, you're a failure. I think massive action is just, man, if you can just make 10 calls today, maybe it's 20 calls, right? Or maybe, because if you're working a full-time W-2 job, you're working 40 to 50 hours a week. And then if you have a couple kids and you're married, like you have obligations inside of your personal life, and you also still have to provide. So you have to find the time inside of that 40 to 50 hour work week. Oh, plus your personal life, because you still have to maintain, you know, you still have to keep your spouse happy, and you still have to engage with your kids and fulfill those duties, because that's your role. Then you have to find the slots inside of, maybe it's 30 minutes during lunch, or maybe it's for 45 minutes after I get home, or an hour after I get home. I'm going to spend that time concentrated on calling sellers, or I'm going to call realtors, or I'm going to write offers. And if I can just do that, and if I can do that 5 to 6 days a week, eventually there's going to be a yes in there somewhere. And it's that grind that's where you'll learn to appreciate the result. Because for those people that, it's funny, like you see all the marketing materials, right? Like that's how like some of these guru people get you into their programs, because look how so-and-so in 90 days got a check for got a check cut to them for $120 off of a wholesale deal or a flip or whatever it is. And you talk to that person, it's like, yeah, well, what they didn't tell you is I spent about 60 grand in marketing. And it took me 8.5 months to actually get that. But from the time I sent the letter to the time I got the result, yeah, it was 90 days, but I've already been in it for like 8-9 months, and have spent a lot of money and went through a lot of stuff.
And sometimes the deal probably wasn't even good, even though they got the contract. I've seen that a lot these days with creative stuff. Like, yeah, okay, that's nice. You got a creative deal, but you way overpaid for it, and now you can't do anything with the asset.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, and that's the thing I think we have to understand, like it's all marketing.
Yeah.
Like but it's fine. It's business. We have to market they're trying to sell a product, and so they're going to market, and they're going to market their best students. But I think what we have to realize is, on the social media front, what gets advertised to us there's truth in it, but there's also a big story behind it. And then if you can engage with those people and really get the story behind it, you know, there's a lot more to it. And you'll realize that there's a lot of grind there. I mean, if they advertised all of that, it really wouldn't be that sexy to be a real estate investor.
Right. Yeah.
It's
not like you were saying, like you got to allocate 30 minutes here, and 15 minutes on your lunch, and an hour after all the kids go to bed.
Yeah.
That's what being an entrepreneur looks like.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And, and that's, I think that was a big, I really am grateful for my parents, and because they were both entrepreneurs and business owners. My dad was a crop duster down in the Magic Valley. Yeah. So it was really cool. I mean, it was cool. And then my mom owned a bar and restaurant. So I was exposed to this very early. So during the summer season, my dad would have to get up before dark or before dawn, and then get out to the airport, and then basically start flying as soon as the sun was just coming up. So he was getting up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, getting to the airport, and then they would work, he was working anywhere between 14 to 16 hour days. So my introduction was about 9 years old. During the summer, if I wanted to see my dad, I had to go to the airport and go hang out with him. So next thing you know, I'm like mixing chemicals. I'm loading the airplanes for him at like 9, because it was fun as a 9-year-old.
Yeah. Next
thing you know, like I'm getting woken up at like 5 o'clock in the morning. He's like, "You're coming to work." I'm like, because nobody would show up because it was hard.
Yeah.
I mean, there was guys, his crew that he had, I mean, they didn't want to get up at 4:30 in the morning and work till 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And so he had guys just turning over left and right, and he would just, "Well, you're coming with me." And so I learned a lot of just watching that, right? And just seeing how people weren't willing to stick with it, because it takes a lot. I mean, it's not 9 to 5. It's not 8 to 5. There's no such thing.
You're exposed to delayed gratification even though it was hard work in the moment. Like you saw at the end of the summer, how much it paid off for your family and your father. Whereas like nowadays, like we were talking about on social media, like everyone wants that instant gratification.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And, and it's just, that's the challenge. And I think that's part of the reason why I don't gravitate to advertising. I mean, doing a lot of, as far as our media, on social media, is because I just don't, I run into some of those people at events and I talk to them. I'm like, oh, you're not even really doing deals.
Yeah.
Like, oh, then you kind of lose like all the luster and respect that had been built up for him, because you realize like and that's from on the education side, investing in certain like mentors and things like that. There's a heavy vetting process because I've learned some lessons. Like I've invested in some programs where like, if I share this story.
Sure. Yeah. Let's go for it.
So one of the before we found the mentor that kind of really got us on the path to our cash flow business, we invested in this one program. And I think we spent $8,000 to $10,000. It was something like that. It was like a 6-month program, or it was like a 90-day program, or 90 to 120-day program. Anyway, we get on our first call, and it was a very basic introductory to real estate investing. And we got on our first call and we talked to them. And at that point we'd done like, I don't know, 30 plus deals. And like, oh, well, you guys are like the cream of the crop. I mean, you guys are like one of our top echelon students. So we're actually going to put you with one of our top trainers. Cool. So we get a call scheduled and he tells us, well, I'll tell you what, you guys have got a lot of experience. He said, we're going to actually, what I'd like to do is actually just start working with you guys on some certain new strategies and techniques that are being in today's market. And we can actually partner on those deals. We're like, sweet. Okay, cool. Well, we get about 3 weeks in and we're having a call once or twice a week, just depending. And we get about 3 weeks in and we're calling this guy. He's not answering his phone. And so finally we're like, it's about like the third day into the week and we've called him like 5 or 6 times. And finally he answers and he's talking like this. He's just talking really quiet. Hey man, what's going on? He's like, hey, hang on a second. And you hear some rustling and stuff. And then you kind of hear like he steps outside. He's like, hey man, yeah, sorry guys. I'm actually at my job right now. I'm working. My wife, cause I kind of lost my ass in the real estate market here a couple of years ago. So my wife doesn't really like me doing real estate at all. So I'm actually at my W-2 job right now. And we just went, wow. Like we have way more experience than this guy who's our trainer.
Yeah.
Teaching it. And so that really kind of exposed me to like, we got burned once and I was like, okay, from anything we invest in the future, like we're going to heavily vet, like making sure somebody is.
I wonder if you almost need to go through some of these experiences yourself though. I
Totally
wonder if
do.
that's a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you absolutely do. And I'm grateful for the fact that it was just that dollar. I mean, it was a lot of money at the time.
At the time, 100%. Yeah.
But for what, a lot of these programs are at now, I mean, had we written a check like that, I mean, that would have been devastating.
Yeah.
But there's, I mean, and it's still true today though. I mean, there are a lot of people out there that are they're just marketers. They're not investors. They're marketers. And I think that's the dangerous play to it. And once you kind of get out in some of those areas and meet some of those people, well, I'm not saying there's a lot of those guys that are out there that are legit. They're great. They're really honest, but there's also people out there that they're doing it for the wrong reasons. So
yeah, because they see on social media that it's sexy to build a course or a program or a school or a community that,
yeah,
and they can make money around.
This show would not be possible without the support from our local community. Because of you, we're able to share information from leading professionals like never before. That's why our sponsors at Boise Turnkey Investments and Your Stay B&B have teamed up with the Boise REIN Show. Whether you're just starting out or you're a seasoned pro, they help bring you all the insider information to get you started on your journey today. Back to the show.
That in mind, you also had some good experiences with courses and mentors. And I was going to ask, what would be one thing you would tell, your past self, some advice you would give them, first going through? But honestly, I think that was good advice. Like go through the hard times but do you have anything else that comes to mind?
Yeah, I would just, for me, and I think I mentioned this at one of the meetups, is go big. Just go big. Don't get caught up in the onesie twosie stuff. Like it's great. Cause yeah, you have to learn it, but go big, because you'll look back and you'll more than likely say to yourself, I wish I would have done more.
Yeah, I've found that sometimes it almost just takes the same effort to 2x as it does to 10x.
Well, it's like, yeah, I mean, we had multiple people that I'd talked to. It's like, look, man, it's just one more zero. It's the same.
Yeah.
It's the same amount of effort.
Yeah.
Right. It's the same amount of effort and energy to put into it. It's just one more zero. So,
And tell me what your thoughts are on this. From what I have found, it's easier to go big with more people. Find a group of people that have the same vision, goals, that want to do the same thing, and go big with them versus trying to do it on your own. What are your thoughts on that?
yeah, I totally agree with that. I don't think that's any secret, right? Because it's like, I'm going to butcher the saying. What's the saying? If you want to go far, you can go on your own.
You want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Exactly. Yep. So, I mean, it rings true, right? It totally rings true. And I think the question is that you have to ask yourself is, how far, I mean, where is it that you really want to go, right? Do you want to stay small and keep it all, or do you want to scale and, and have a huge company?
A small piece of a huge pie.
Yeah. Right. I mean, and so I think that's part of the other thing in going through this process. Like for me, like, I don't know, I wasn't built to be running, to want to have to do like 20 or 30 deals a month. There's just a lot of headache in that. And that's just my scale. I mean, that's just my thought process. And I just don't, we just go on quality, and I got a pretty simple life, and I like what we do. And it's, and we're doing some restructuring now, but there's some that they want to run, have 10, 15, 20, 30, 50 employees, 100 employees, and they want to take over the world. I mean, that's cool. But I think until you're clear on that, because it doesn't make any sense for me to try to scale, something to have like 100 employees and want to take over the entire Western region of the United States and be in 15 different, 4 or 5 or 10 or 15 different states, when I'm really not aligned to that. I tried doing that, and I realized like, I just like buying here in Idaho, I like buying in my own backyard. I just know it. It just kind of resonates with who I am, what I like, and it's cool. I'm good with that.
So if you were to talk to future Dan, what would future Dan give you for advice? Looking at what you're doing now.
Go big.
He would still say go bigger?
Yeah.
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 I don't know you went big, but listen, it's time to go bigger.
Yeah. And
what does bigger look like? Because you just said you wouldn't necessarily want to scale like as big as taking over the whole West Coast.
And that's it, right? That's so, and I should take that back. I would say it is go big with what you believe in and just be in alignment with that. And because going big doesn't necessarily, for me, when I look at that, going big doesn't necessarily mean making it, again, building a huge company, right?
Okay.
I think some of the things that we're looking at going into now, looking at going into kind of trying to build something around notes and just kind of exploring that space. I think there's ways to go big inside of that space that doesn't necessarily mean you have to have a huge company to do it, right? Because the manpower and the effort and energy that it takes on one side of it isn't necessarily the manpower that it takes on the property side, how I see it. And so it's just going big, but putting the energy into that space that really kind of allows the true growth that aligns with me, satisfies me.
Tell me what your thoughts are on this. I just kind of had this thought as we're talking through, but I'm reminded of like, the sunlight analogy. Like the sunlight covers the whole earth, right? But if you take a magnifying glass, you can focus that light, and you could take the same amount of energy and you could focus it into one thing, and that becomes a really powerful tool. And over the course of this conversation, we've talked about first being the hustler, wearing all the hats, doing everything, and then you're going to hit a wall because you run out of time.
Yep.
How do you go bigger from there? Well, you start making a system out of that. You start becoming the CEO instead of the hustler. Okay, well, now I know these systems are in place and I need to do these things. So you have built all the systems as a CEO. You're further niching down into your industry. And what you're talking about right now is taking it one step beyond that and niching it down even further to, okay, what are my passions? What am I really good at? What is the one thing that I can spend most of my energy in one day that I enjoy doing that's going to make the most effect on the business that I'm creating? And how can I surround myself with the other people who are,
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's where's the best use of my time?
yeah,
Right? Where's my passion line and where I can go put that focus in there, right? So just because I'm putting my energy there doesn't necessarily mean we're still not doing deals, right? On the other side. It's just maybe my energy is not there. My focus isn't there. And it's the systems and the process and the people that get put in that place are going to continue to manifest and grow and build that side of it. But my energy and passion is no longer there. It's on something new where that growth can be. So because I look at it, I think we're all in that same boat, right? It's not about getting rich. It's about building wealth. It's about building a legacy. And it's about really having something there for not only our kids, but our kids' kids, and just having something that can be passed down. And so that's, I think, looking at going bigger, that's where I'm looking at it from that perspective. It's like, what kind of impact can I have? What kind of security can I provide to not only my kids, but my kids, my grandkids, so they have the freedom of choice to pursue those passions that they really want versus having to be forced into a W-2 job.
yeah, I would also argue to say that, not only are you doing this for your kids, but your parents did this for you as well. It's not necessarily just even a monetary value. It's like the education and how you were brought up, the hard work that was distilled into you, that knowledge that not only did your parents give you, but you're giving your kids. You talked about how easy it was for your daughter to get up on stage and talk. Well, look, the family that she's been surrounded by, the hard work and seeing, her parents, get after it and what that delayed gratification has to show for it.
Yeah. I mean, it's the exposure into this other side. It's the exposure into entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurship is a different way of thinking. And if you get caught up in, it's like getting caught up in watching the news. If you get caught up in watching the news, it's fear. It's fear porn. It's just everything that's being propagated to us that, shrinks us in and allows us to, or tries to force us into some form of like just following, right? Just following what is being told to us and not questioning, not challenging, not inventing or creating. And that's what's cool being on this side of it is, if we're just talking specifically in the real estate investment space, the REI space, there's a million ways to go out there and create. There's a million ways to go out there and market. There's a million ways to go out there and try to generate a dollar, right? Or get a return on that dollar that's 2, 3, 10x of what you put into it. And it's all limited just to your creativity. That's all it is. And so that component of it is if we can, from an education standpoint, if we can just allow exposure to the opportunities of, like, no, it's free market.
Yeah.
And the only limit is your thoughts. The only limit is your beliefs and what you put into it.
I think that is one of the things that I love about going to meetups and conferences and events and some of the things that you've done. And, you get a lot of experience from people who are in the trenches doing the work too.
Yeah.
Being around those people, man, it just motivates you.
Well, it does. And then it exposes, you just get into conversations like, and I think it's the kind of goes back to the new levels, new devils, right? Because you're so focused on building your thing. And then you go to an event where you have, let's just say 50 to 100 other investors that are across the nation. And then 2 or 3 guys get up and speak, or people get up and speak about what they're doing. And you kind of go, I had no idea you could do that. Or, wow, that dude he's done this much. He's done this much volume. How are you doing that? So it just exposes you to the world of possibility inside of this business, right? And it gets you out of your own limiting beliefs, because we all have them. We all have these self-limiting beliefs about, who we are and what we can and what we have the capability of doing. And it's groups like this that get you into an environment that has great energy and synergy and support that, gives you just gives you the inspiration to continue to reinvent, to continue to create and grow.
Yeah. And to show you that there are new heights. It's the flea in the jar analogy.
Yeah.
Flea can jump out of a jar until you put a lid on it.
Yeah.
Then it doesn't believe it can do it.
Right.
And going to these events takes that lid off for you. It's incredible.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you think about who, it's just the 5 people you surround yourself with, you're the averages of those.
Yes, we are sponges.
Yeah. And so if we're at a W-2 job and we're trying to get out into entrepreneurship and you're surrounded by all of your coworkers that are stuck in that same loop, and if you're hanging out with those people, which, if it's going to, it creates a negative loop, and it creates a loop that you can never, that you're not going to get out of unless you break away from that, that circle of people, because the conversations are not productive to get you to where it is that you want to go.
I'm reminded, like, the smartest people in that world was like the ones who are saying, make sure you put 5% in your investment because they will match it. Like, that's the best thing that you could be doing. Like, oh my gosh, this guy is putting in 5% and they're matching it. That's incredible. But that's the lid that you get on that jar.
Yeah.
On the W-2 jar. That's your lid.
Or it's, and this is the other thing too, that I feel, because we were talking about sphere of influence earlier, right? Kind of the power of.
Yeah, let's move into that.
Yeah. So, we're talking about just being able to raise capital, and, for us getting started, well, let me make my point, then we can jump over to that. The point is this, that there's a lot of fear, I think, it was for me in a sense, but there was also fear in, some of my friends that were trying to get involved with it, that they wanted to invest in properties. They wanted to kind of, buy a property and fix and flip it and do all this stuff, but their sphere of people around them said, oh, don't do real estate. It's risky. And especially like in 2009, can you imagine the attitude of people? Like, they had just they had just bought a house in 2006 that was at $240,000, and now the bank's saying it's worth 80. It's like, so their mentality of like, don't invest in real estate. That is super risky. So you get around those conversations, and it's hard. It's hard for people to be like, but I want to do that. And if all of the people around you that you feel are your support staff, which is your family and friends, which they do love you, they do want the best for you, but they want the best for you for what they think is the best for you, not what the best for you.
Everybody wants you to do good. They just don't want you to do better than themselves.
Exactly. Right. It's kind of like it's like climbing the ladder, and you got everybody behind, all your friends and family that are afraid to climb the ladder, but then they're grabbing you, trying to pull you down. Like, don't climb that ladder.
Right.
Yeah. So, so the sphere of influence is really huge. When we first got started, one of the things we learned is, hey, look, going out and raising go out and, raising money, because at the time, trying to find money at the time that we were doing it, it's pretty challenging. A lot of the hard money lenders had really kind of contracted a little bit, the valuations, because the market had just crashed. And so now it was chaotic. It was just really chaotic times. And so, one of the mentors that we'd worked with, that we hired, he said, like, look, the most money that you will raise, and you'll create the most and instant impact in generating money for you and your business, is your sphere of influence. And he used the financial planner analogy, which I had never really known, but he said, because he was a financial planner in his past life, and he said, look, when financial planners get hired, they don't get hired because of their degrees or their previous work history. They get hired because of the people that they know. So they're asked how many people that they know. And if they know over 150 to 200 people, they'll hire them, because the next thing that their first year on the job is calling all the people that they know. They write out a list, whether it's from your best friend to your parents, all the way to a kid that you went to elementary school with that you probably hadn't talked to in 20 plus years. But those are the people that you know. And so he taught us to really make a list and just start calling and talking to people. And he emphasized, look, it's about sharing the opportunity with them, right? So what does the sphere of influence do? It knocks, you've already knocked down the whole branding thing as far as know and liking and trusting, right? So that's all been eliminated. So you don't have to go spend. So, you know, a lot of people, we were just talking about this, a lot of people that are getting started feel like they have to go out and create this social media brand, and they got to generate followers, and they have to create a lot of content, and they have to get this brand of like being credible to get people to draw them in to do business with. Well, you probably got 250 to 300 people that you've come across with, that you cross paths with, and that you have done some sort of meaningful, that you've impacted in some sort of meaningful way, whether it's a conversation, or you went to school with them, you went to work with them, or you go to church with them, or your friends or whatever. But you have this huge network of people that already find you credible, that already know you as trustworthy, that already know what you stand for, that already know like that you're going to follow through, that they know the energy that you give because they've been around you, and they have people around you that can vouch for you as well.
You just skipped all those steps. And furthermore, you don't even have to make cold calls anymore because you know these people.
Right. But the thing of it is, and this is what's funny, is we immediately disregard that list because, well, they don't have any money, or they don't really believe in real estate. Well, you're right. They may not believe in real estate, but who do they believe in? You. Because they know, like, and trust you, and they know what you stand for, and they know that you're going to do what you say you're going to do. So we heard stories, and we've had the same, my partner at the time, and we would go down to these events every 90 days, and we do these money raises. We start calling our phone, we start calling our sphere, and there'd be literally people like, they have this story of like, well, I don't want to call, my aunt because, she's super low income. She drives a beat up car. It's just, she doesn't have any money. Well, call her anyway. I called her. It's like, holy cow, she's got like 200 grand, or she has like 500 grand sitting in cash, like in CDs. Yeah. It's like, you just don't know. And we make these assumptions that the people closest to us aren't going to do anything with this because they don't have any money. But, we don't go around bragging about our bank accounts.
Right.
And most of the time they're friends with you because they like you and they just want to hang out with you, and you're hanging out with them for the right reasons. And so if you only just pick up the phone and just have a conversation with somebody, with a friend, and say, hey, look, man, I've just got a great opportunity. I just want to share the opportunity with you because you're the first person I thought of. And, I just wanted to share with what I'm doing in my business that's really exciting, and just wanted to talk about with you and to see if you might be interested.
Have you ever found the reverse to be true as well? Like you call some of these people or a family member, a longtime friend, and they're like, oh my gosh, I've always wanted to get into this.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you called.
100%. That's all
awesome.
the time. Huh. Oh, and then guess what? Like, you talk to those people and like, oh yeah, well, my friend so-and-so has this. We were just talking about, and they've got this, and actually they just had it, and so-and-so over here has just inherited a bunch of money, and they're looking to do something with that. And so like I would just say, don't disregard the sphere of people that you have in your life right now, because you're literally a phone call away from raising money for your next deal that you thought you'd have to go to a private lender or get qualified through a DSCR loan and having to put all this stuff up. But it's literally a phone call, and they'll just stroke you a check.
This is something people could do today. They could just start writing out a list today.
Yeah, I would just tell you, what I would just say is like, look, literally get a note, get a pad and a pen if you still use those, or whatever, and just make a list of everybody you know, and don't discount or disregard anybody. Yeah, go through your Facebook account. Go look at all your Facebook friends and all your followers that you know, like literally know, not the ones that are just following you because they follow you, and go start start picking up the phone and getting into a live conversation with those people, and just say, and if you got, tell them what you're doing. Like, hey, I'd love to just sit down and catch up with you. If it's over coffee, or maybe if they're long distance over a Zoom call, just say, hey man, like I'd just love to catch up with you, share with you about what I'm doing and a lot of the opportunities that we have, and then, man, just see what you think.
You make it sound so easy, like you take all the friction out of raising private money.
It's all it is a conversation.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I think, especially getting started, where there's this big misconception that we have to go work with people that are in the industry. And then, man, like, yeah, there's money that's easy to go get, easy in the sense of like people in the industry that know it, but then you're going to really pay for it, right? You're going to pay 12, 13%. You're going to pay points. You're going to pay all these restrictions where which is fine and it works if it works. But you might be able to make a phone call and go talk to a friend that will lend you a couple $100,000 at like 6%. And they'll just cut you the check and you don't have to go through anything. And like, I would say out of 90 to 95% of the transactions that we've done and where we've used private money, it's all been 100% funded. Rehab and all. We've brought zero money to the table.
And everybody was happier for it too, I'm sure.
Yeah. Because again, they know you, they like you, they trust you, they love you more than likely. And they know what you do. And if they haven't seen what you're doing, if you're just getting started and you don't really have a track record inside of the real estate investing space, they've seen your track record in everything else that you've done leading up to this point.
Yeah. You went to college, or you were a manager in a career field and you had to get out, like you've shown them success already that you can put in the work.
You have skill sets that are transferable into this business. Yeah. Right. And so, and they've seen that and they've admired that. And all they do is want to support you because they would rather give it to you and have that money put to work, benefiting you and benefiting them versus, turning it over to a financial planner, a financial advisor, or, and then sometimes, you're going to have to compete with that. You're going to have to compete with the financial advisors. And the only reason why financial advisors are going to tell you not to invest with somebody like you is because they can't make money off of you. They can't, if they take money and go put it with you, the financial advisors can't make money with that.
I'm not in this realm, nor do I choose to be, but a lot of the argument I get is like, well, I can make 8% with my financial advisor. Why would I go with you? But that's what they talk about. They don't talk about like the fees. I don't know what they are, but they have to be around 0.5% to 2% that they're taking in fees.
Yeah, and look,
that they don't really talk about.
Yeah, and I think right now, we're in the climate that we're in right now. Look, rates have moved. God, there was a period of time where people could go park their money in a bank and get 5-6%, right? Which is fine, but that's not going to be forever.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think again, it comes down to just sharing that opportunity. And again, those people that are going to challenge you with their financial advisors and things like that, that just takes more time. Right. It's not saying that they won't ever. It's just a matter of you just got to keep kind of nurturing and networking, building that trust and just sharing the opportunities, sharing the wins, showing them what you're doing. But the people that are close to you are going to want you to succeed. And you're literally a phone call away from somebody that could literally have $1 million sitting in the bank that you don't even know that they're looking to do. They're looking to do something with it. And they'd be more than happy to have you put it to work for them versus, maybe a financial advisor or putting it in the banks or whatever it may be, because they just don't trust it.
Hi, I'm Jonna Weber, the founder of the Boise Real Estate Investor Network. Thanks for being a listener of our Boise REIN show, where our incredible pro members share their personal stories and areas of expertise with our listeners. If you're enjoying our show, you are going to love our Boise REIN community. Our mission is to inspire, connect, and equip you to create wealth and freedom for yourself and your family. We invite you to join us as a member at Boise REIN today at boiserein.com.
Dan, I really appreciate you coming in here today. The time has gone by so quick. I know our audience appreciates it. I appreciate it. I would love to have you here for 3 more hours and talk to you. You're just such a wealth of knowledge, and you're a man who's done the thing. And for that, we thank you. But before we go, I do have to ask you, what's one actionable item that our audience could take today that will get them closer to their goals tomorrow?
I think we just talked about it here in the last 5 minutes.
We did. Yeah.
So I would say that make a list of everybody that you know and start making those phone calls about sharing opportunity with them in their business, about what it is that you're doing or aspiring to do inside of your business, and see if they are interested in going along for the ride.
Yeah. Never know what you're going to find.
Yeah. You're one phone call away.
I love it, Dan. Thank you so much. We'll have all the information where people can reach out to you in the show notes, but if there's any shout out you want to make out right now, Dan, thank you for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure. And for the rest of Boise REIN, we'll see you guys next time.